Silas shuffled down the dusty road, his boots worn thin. The sun beat down on his back, but a chill always seemed to cling to him, especially in his bones. He was a drifter, never staying in one place for too long. His world was small, contained within the patched pockets of his threadbare trousers and the worn canvas of his backpack. But there was one thing he owned that he cherished, his winter coat. It wasn't much to look at. Brown, faded, and patched in several places with mismatched pieces of cloth. But it was warm. Silas had found it years ago, abandoned near a campfire. He'd carefully mended the rips and tears, reinforcing the seams with thick, clumsy stitches. The lining was soft, a faded blue cotton that smelled faintly of wood smoke and something else, something comforting he couldn't quite name. That coat had seen him through blizzards and freezing nights under starry skies. It was more than just a coat. It was his home, his protection, his friend. Silas wasn't a handsome man, but his eyes held a kindness that shone through the dust and weariness. They were the color of warm honey, and they crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which wasn't as often as he liked. He carried little, but what he had, he was willing to share. A crust of bread, a sip of water, a kind word, Silas offered what he could. He believed even the smallest gesture could make a difference in the world. He didn't know what lay ahead on the road, but he faced each day with a quiet hope and the warmth of his trusty coat to keep him company. Little did he know, the road was about to present him with a challenge that would test his kindness in ways he never imagined. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Silas rounded a bend in the road, and that's when he saw him. A young man lay slumped against a snowdrift, his face pale and clammy. Silas hurried over, his heart pounding a little faster. "Hey there," Silas said gently, kneeling beside him. "Are you all right?" The young man groaned, his eyes fluttering open. They were glassy and unfocused. "Cold," he rasped, his voice hoarse. "So cold." Silas touched his forehead. It was burning hot. The young man was shivering uncontrollably, his teeth chattering. Silas could hear the ragged, wet sound of his breath, each inhale a struggle. He knew with a sinking feeling that the young man was very sick. "Fever," Silas murmured to himself. He looked around. They were miles from the nearest town, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. He had to do something, and fast. He helped the young man sit up a little, supporting him with one arm. "What's your name?" Silas asked. "Thomas," the young man whispered. "Thomas Ashton." "All right, Thomas," Silas said, his voice firm despite the worry churning inside him. "We need to get you warm." He scanned the surroundings again, desperate for some kind of shelter, but there was nothing. Only snow-covered fields and the darkening sky. He knew the longer Thomas stayed out in the cold, the worse he would get. Silas had a choice to make, a difficult one. He looked at his coat, his faithful companion, and then back at Thomas, shivering and feverish. The decision, though painful, was already made. Silas gently helped Thomas to his feet, the young man leaning heavily on him. He unbuttoned his own coat, the cold air immediately biting at his skin. For a moment he hesitated, his fingers brushing against the familiar rough fabric. This coat was all he had, but then he looked at Thomas, at his pale face and the desperate, pleading look in his eyes. Silas knew what he had to do. Carefully, he slipped the coat off his shoulders. The loss of its warmth was immediate and sharp. He held the coat out to Thomas. "Here," Silas said, his voice steady. "Take this, it's warm." Thomas looked at the coat, then back at Silas, confusion clouding his feverish gaze. "But what about you?" he mumbled. "I'll be all right," Silas replied, offering a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm tougher than I look." He draped the coat over Thomas's shoulders, carefully wrapping it around him. As he did, his fingers brushed against the worn, stitched lining one last time. He noticed a small tear he'd meant to mend, a tiny imperfection in the fabric. It was a small detail, but it was his detail, a part of the coat's story and a part of his own. Thomas burrowed into the warmth of the coat, a sigh escaping his lips. The shivering seemed to lessen just a little. Silas felt a pang of sadness as he watched Thomas wrapped in his coat, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of purpose. He had done the right thing. "Come on," Silas said, putting his arm around Thomas again. "Let's see if we can find some shelter." He knew the night would be long and cold, but he wouldn't let Thomas face it alone. He had given his coat, but he still had his strength, his kindness, and his determination. And that, he realized, was worth more than any coat in the world. The next few weeks were harsh. Silas and Thomas eventually found a dilapidated barn, offering meager protection from the relentless winter. Silas nursed Thomas back to health, sharing his meager rations and keeping a watchful eye on his fever. He burned what little wood he could find to keep them both warm, the cold seeping into his bones. Once Thomas was strong enough to travel, he left, promising Silas he would never forget his kindness. Silas watched him go, a mix of relief and loneliness washing over him. The barn felt colder without Thomas, and the wind seemed to whisper through the cracks in the walls, mocking his sacrifice. He continued his journey, the lack of the coat a constant reminder of his generosity. The snow seemed to fall heavier, the wind blew sharper, and the nights were longer. He wrapped himself in old newspapers and scavenged for scraps of cloth to keep warm, but nothing could truly replace the comfort of his coat. There were days when he regretted his decision, when the cold gnawed at his resolve. But then he would remember Thomas's pale face and the gratitude in his eyes, and he knew he had done the right thing. He shared what little food he found with stray dogs and shivering birds, extending the same kindness he had shown Thomas. He learned to build small fires with even the dampest wood, his hands growing numb with the cold. He pushed onward, driven by a quiet determination and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest winter, spring would eventually come. He found warmth not in a coat, but in the small acts of kindness he continued to offer the world. Years passed. The harsh winter became a distant memory, though the chill of it still lingered in Silas's bones. He wandered from town to town, working odd jobs, always moving, always searching for something he couldn't quite name. Then one day he arrived in the small town of Meadow Creek. It was a quiet, peaceful place nestled in a valley, surrounded by rolling hills and sparkling streams. The people were friendly and welcoming, and Silas felt a sense of calm he hadn't experienced in a long time. At the edge of town, a sign announced the arrival of a new doctor. "Welcome, Dr. Thomas Ashton." Silas didn't pay much attention, his mind preoccupied with finding work and a place to sleep. He took a job at the local sawmill, his strong hands making quick work of the heavy logs. Dr. Thomas, meanwhile, quickly became a beloved figure in Meadow Creek. He was young but wise beyond his years, with a gentle touch and a kind heart. He listened patiently to his patients, offering not only medical care but also comfort and understanding. He set up his small office in the heart of town, its windows always lit late into the night. He treated everyone, rich or poor, never turning anyone away. He was everything a small town could hope for in a doctor. He had come to Meadow Creek seeking a quiet place to practice medicine, a place where he could make a real difference. But deep down, he was also searching for something else, a way to repay a debt he could never forget. He remembered the kindness of a stranger on a snowy road, the warmth of a patched coat, and the unwavering generosity that had saved his life. He knew he could never truly repay that debt, but he could dedicate his life to helping others, honoring the memory of the drifter who had shown him the true meaning of compassion. The peace of Meadow Creek was shattered one crisp autumn morning. A strange illness began to spread through the town, swift and relentless. People woke up with burning fevers, aching joints, and a terrible cough that rattled in their chests. Children were the first to fall ill, followed by the elderly and then seemingly everyone else. Panic began to grip the town. The school closed, the shops shuttered their doors, and the streets emptied. Fear hung heavy in the air, thicker than the autumn mist that rolled in from the surrounding hills. Rumors spread like wildfire, a curse, a punishment, a sickness brought in from the outside world. Doctor. Thomas worked tirelessly, tending to the sick day and night. His small office overflowed with patients, their faces pale and drawn. He diagnosed the illness as a particularly virulent strain of influenza, but he had no effective treatment. He used what he had: herbal remedies, fever reducers, and most importantly, his unwavering compassion. He sat by bedsides, holding hands, wiping brows, and offering words of comfort. He showed the townspeople how to care for their loved ones, how to keep them clean and comfortable, how to prevent the illness from spreading further. He organized a makeshift hospital in the town hall, transforming the meeting room into a ward filled with cots and worried faces. Despite his efforts, the illness continued to spread. People grew weaker, their breaths grew shallower, and the fear in Meadow Creek deepened. Dr. Thomas felt a growing sense of desperation. He knew he was losing the battle, and the thought of failing the town, of failing to save them, weighed heavily on his heart. He needed a miracle, but miracles, he feared, were in short supply. Silas, still working at the sawmill, watched the town descend into chaos with a heavy heart. He saw the fear in the eyes of his neighbors, the worry etched on their faces. He knew he had to do something, anything, to help. He started by volunteering at the town hall, assisting Dr. Thomas in any way he could. He cleaned cots, delivered meals, and fetched water. His strong hands, calloused from years of hard work, were gentle as he helped the sick. He listened to their stories, offering a comforting presence and a steady hand to hold. He saw the exhaustion in Dr. Thomas's eyes, the strain of the endless work taking its toll. One evening, as Silas was tending to a feverish child, he felt a familiar ache in his own joints, a burning sensation in his throat. He recognized the symptoms immediately. He, too, had fallen ill. He tried to ignore it, pushing through the pain, determined to continue helping, but the illness quickly took hold. He collapsed near the woodpile behind the town hall, his body racked with chills and fever. Doctor. Thomas found him there, his face pale and drawn, his breath ragged and shallow. He recognized Silas immediately, not just as a helpful volunteer, but as a man he had seen around town, a quiet, unassuming figure. He knelt beside him, his brow furrowed with concern. He examined Silas, his touch gentle and practiced. "Silas," he said, his voice soft, "you're sick, you need to rest." But even as he spoke, something flickered in his eyes, a spark of recognition, a memory struggling to surface. He looked at Silas again, really looked at him, and a wave of understanding washed over him. He knew this man, he realized. He knew him from somewhere, from a long time ago. But where? He helped Silas to a cot inside the town hall, his mind racing. He remembered the snow, the cold, the fever. He remembered a patched coat, a kind face, and a voice that had offered him hope when he had none. He remembered a tear in the lining, a small imperfection in a faded blue fabric. He rushed back to his office, rummaging through his old belongings. He found a small, carefully folded piece of cloth tucked away in a wooden box. It was a fragment of faded blue cotton, with a clumsy stitch holding it together. He recognized it instantly. It was from the lining of the coat. He had kept it all these years, a tangible reminder of the kindness he had received. He returned to Silas's side, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked at Silas's face, his features now softened by fever. He saw the same kind eyes, the same gentle spirit he remembered from that snowy road. "It was you," Dr. Thomas whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "You gave me your coat." Silas, barely conscious, managed a weak smile. "Just trying to help," he mumbled. Dr. Thomas's determination hardened. He knew he had to save Silas, not just because he was a fellow human being, but because he owed him everything. He began to treat Silas with a renewed focus, using all his knowledge and skill. He mixed special herbal teas, carefully monitoring his fever and tending to his every need. He barely slept, his mind consumed with finding a way to save the man who had saved him. He knew he had to find a cure, not just for Silas, but for the entire town. He would not let the kindness he had received be repaid with loss. The memory of the coat, of the sacrifice Silas had made, fueled his efforts. He had to save them all, days blurred into nights. Doctor. Thomas experimented with different remedies, consulting old medical books and drawing on his knowledge of herbal medicine. He noticed that some patients responded well to a particular combination of herbs, a blend of willow bark for fever, elderflower for congestion, and honey for soothing the throat. He refined the mixture, carefully adjusting the proportions until he found a formula that seemed to offer some relief. He administered the remedy to Silas, watching him closely for any signs of improvement. Slowly, Silas's fever began to subside. His breathing became easier and the color returned to his cheeks. Dr. Thomas felt a surge of hope. The remedy was working. He began to administer the same mixture to other patients, and he saw the same positive results. The tide was turning. People were starting to recover. The coughs became less frequent, the fevers broke, and the light returned to their eyes. The town hall, once filled with despair, now echoed with the sounds of recovery. But Dr. Thomas knew the battle was not yet won. He needed to find a way to produce the remedy on a larger scale to ensure that everyone in Meadow Creek had access to it. He enlisted the help of the townspeople, teaching them how to identify and harvest the necessary herbs. He worked with the local blacksmith to build a larger still for distilling the mixture. The town, once divided by fear, came together in a spirit of cooperation and determination. They worked side by side, harvesting herbs, tending to the sick, and supporting one another. They had faced the darkness together, and now they were emerging into the light, stronger and more united than ever before. And at the heart of it all was Dr. Thomas, the young doctor who had shown them the power of compassion and the importance of hope. As Silas recovered, he slowly regained his strength. He sat up in his cot, watching Dr. Thomas work tirelessly, moving from patient to patient with a quiet determination. He noticed the lines of exhaustion etched on the young doctor's face, the dark circles under his eyes. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for his care, for his unwavering dedication to the town. One day, as Dr. Thomas was checking on him, Silas spoke, his voice still weak but clear. "You've been very kind," he said. "Thank you." Dr. Thomas smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You deserve it, Silas," he replied. "You saved my life years ago." Silas frowned, confusion clouding his features. "Saved your life?" he asked. "I don't understand." Dr. Thomas pulled up a chair and sat beside him. "Do you remember a young man, sick with fever, collapsed on a snowy road?" he asked. "Do you remember giving him your coat?" Silas's eyes widened in recognition. "Thomas," he whispered, "is that you?" Dr. Thomas nodded. "It is," he said, "and I never forgot your kindness. Your coat saved me that day. It gave me the strength to keep going, to find help, to eventually become a doctor. I owe you everything, Silas." Silas shook his head, a humble smile spreading across his face. "I just did what anyone would have done," he said. "It was just a coat." "It was more than just a coat, Silas," Dr. Thomas said, his voice filled with emotion. "It was an act of kindness, an act of selflessness that changed my life forever, and now it's my turn to repay you." He paused, "and to repay this town." He looked around at the recovering patients, at the faces filled with hope. "We're going to get through this, Silas. We're going to save Meadow Creek." The news of the remedy spread quickly through Meadow Creek. Hope blossomed in the hearts of the townspeople, replacing the fear that had gripped them for so long. Families gathered together, sharing the herbal mixture and tending to their loved ones. The sounds of coughing and fevered breathing gradually subsided, replaced by the murmurs of conversation and the laughter of children. Dr. Thomas, fueled by his gratitude for Silas and his dedication to the town, continued to work tirelessly. He refined the remedy further, discovering new combinations of herbs that could alleviate specific symptoms. He shared his knowledge freely, teaching the townspeople how to prepare the mixture themselves. As the days passed, Meadow Creek slowly began to heal. The school reopened, the shops unlocked their doors, and the streets filled with people once again. The town was scarred, but it was also stronger, bound together by the shared experience of hardship and the unwavering spirit of hope. Silas, now fully recovered, watched the town rebuild with a quiet sense of pride. He saw the smiles on the faces of the children, the relief in the eyes of the adults. He knew that he had played a small part in their recovery, that his act of kindness years ago had set in motion a chain of events that had ultimately saved Meadow Creek. He walked through the town, his steps lighter than they had been in years. He stopped to chat with the shopkeepers, to help the farmers with their harvests, to offer a kind word to anyone who needed it. He had found a home in Meadow Creek, a place where he belonged, a place where his kindness was valued. He was no longer just a drifter, he was a part of something bigger, something meaningful. He was a part of the heart of Meadow Creek. The town of Meadow Creek decided to hold a celebration, a festival of gratitude to honor Dr. Thomas and to commemorate their recovery. They decorated the town square with colorful banners and lanterns. The aroma of freshly baked bread and roasted meats filled the air. Musicians played lively tunes and children danced with abandon. Dr. Thomas stood on a makeshift stage, his face beaming with pride and gratitude. He looked out at the smiling faces of the townspeople, at the families reunited, at the community healed. He knew that he had played a part in their recovery, but he also knew that he couldn't have done it alone. He stepped forward and raised his hand, signaling for silence. "My friends," he said, his voice echoing through the square, "today we celebrate our recovery, our resilience, and our unity. But I want to take this opportunity to thank someone who deserves our deepest gratitude." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "Years ago," he continued, "I was a young man, lost and sick, left for dead on a snowy road. A stranger found me, a kind soul who offered me his only coat, his only source of warmth. That act of kindness saved my life. It gave me the strength to keep going, to become the doctor I am today." He turned to face Silas, who stood at the edge of the crowd, his eyes filled with emotion. "Silas," Dr. Thomas said, his voice choked with tears, "please come forward." The crowd parted, and Silas slowly made his way to the stage. He stood beside Dr. Thomas, his humble demeanor contrasting with the doctor's formal attire. Dr. Thomas placed his hand on Silas's shoulder, his eyes filled with warmth and gratitude. "This man, Doctor," Thomas said, his voice ringing with conviction, "is a hero. He is the reason I am here today. He is the reason we are all here today. Let us all thank Silas for his kindness, his generosity, and his unwavering spirit." The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the valley. They surged forward, surrounding Silas and Dr. Thomas, showering them with praise and gratitude. They thanked Dr. Thomas for his tireless work, his compassion, and his unwavering dedication to their town. They thanked Silas for his kindness, his generosity, and his selfless act that had set everything in motion. The mayor of Meadow Creek stepped forward, his face beaming with pride. "Dr. Thomas," he said, his voice booming through the square, "on behalf of the entire town of Meadow Creek, I want to express our deepest gratitude. You came to our town as a stranger, but you quickly became one of our own. You healed our sick, you comforted our grieving, and you led us through the darkness with unwavering courage and compassion." He presented Dr. Thomas with a key to the city, a symbol of their eternal gratitude. The crowd cheered even louder, their voices filled with love and appreciation. Then the mayor turned to Silas, his eyes filled with warmth. "Silas," he said, his voice softer now, "you may have come to our town as a drifter, but you have shown us the true meaning of kindness and generosity. Your act of selflessness years ago saved Dr. Thomas's life and in turn saved our town. You are a hero, Silas, and we are forever in your debt." He presented Silas with a hand-carved wooden plaque, inscribed with the words, "To Silas, a true friend of Meadow Creek." Silas accepted the plaque with a humble smile, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He had never expected such recognition, such appreciation. He had simply done what he thought was right, and it had changed his life forever. As the celebration continued, Silas stood beside Dr. Thomas, watching the townspeople laugh, dance, and celebrate. He realized that he had finally found what he had been searching for all these years. A place to belong, a purpose to fulfill, and a community to call his own. He was no longer just a drifter, he was a part of the heart of Meadow Creek. The following spring, Meadow Creek was more vibrant than ever before. Flowers bloomed in abundance, the streams sparkled under the warm sun, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of blossoming trees. The town had not only recovered but thrived. Dr. Thomas continued to practice medicine in Meadow Creek, his reputation as a compassionate and skilled healer spreading far and wide. He never forgot the lessons he had learned during the outbreak, the importance of kindness, the power of community, and the unwavering strength of the human spirit. Silas remained in Meadow Creek, working at the sawmill and contributing to the town in any way he could. He was no longer the solitary drifter, but a respected and beloved member of the community. He had found a home, a family, and a purpose. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the valley, Silas and Dr. Thomas sat together on a bench overlooking the town. They watched the children play in the square, the families gather for supper, and the townspeople go about their daily lives. "You know, Thomas," Silas said, his voice soft with contentment, "I never expected any of this. I just wanted to help a young man in need." Dr. Thomas smiled. "Your kindness changed my life, Silas," he said. "It showed me the power of compassion, the importance of helping others. It inspired me to become a doctor, to dedicate my life to serving those in need. You not only saved my life, but you also inspired me to save countless others." He paused, his gaze drifting towards the horizon. "Sometimes," he said, "the smallest act of kindness can have the greatest impact. You gave me your coat, and in doing so, you gave me the gift of a life dedicated to helping others, and for that, I will be forever grateful." Silas smiled, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "It was just a coat, Thomas," he said, "but I'm glad it made a difference." He looked out over Meadow Creek at the thriving town, at the happy faces of the people. He knew that he had found something special, something he had been searching for all his life. He had found a home, a community, and a purpose, and it all started with a coat. As the years passed, the story of Silas and Dr. Thomas became a legend in Meadow Creek, a tale told and retold around crackling fireplaces on cold winter nights. It was a story about kindness, about generosity, about the power of compassion to transform lives and heal communities. The townspeople of Meadow Creek never forgot the lessons they had learned during the outbreak. They continued to support one another, to help those in need, and to embrace the spirit of unity that had saved them all. They established a community fund to provide assistance to those who were struggling, ensuring that no one would ever have to face hardship alone. They also built a small clinic in the town square, named in honor of Dr. Thomas, a place where people could receive medical care regardless of their ability to pay. They stocked the clinic with the herbal remedies that Dr. Thomas had developed, preserving his knowledge and ensuring that future generations would have access to his healing touch. And every year, on the anniversary of the outbreak, the town of Meadow Creek held a celebration, a festival of gratitude to honor Dr. Thomas and Silas and to commemorate their recovery. They remembered the fear, the hardship, and the loss, but they also celebrated the hope, the resilience, and the unity that had brought them through the darkness. The story of the coat, the doctor, and the town became a symbol of the enduring power of kindness, a reminder that even the smallest act of generosity can have a profound and lasting impact on the world. And so, the town of Meadow Creek thrived, a beacon of hope and compassion, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. It was a place where kindness was valued, where community was cherished, and where the story of a drifter's coat would be told for generations to come. Years later, Silas and Dr. Thomas, now old men, sat on the same bench overlooking Meadow Creek. The town had changed, grown, and prospered, but its heart remained the same, a place of kindness, compassion, and community. The setting sun painted the sky in vibrant hues of orange, pink, and purple, mirroring the colorful banners that still adorn the town square in preparation for the annual Festival of Gratitude. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter, music, and the gentle murmur of conversation. Dr. Thomas, his hair now silver and his face etched with the lines of time, leaned back against the bench, a peaceful smile gracing his lips. "It's beautiful, isn't it, Silas?" he said, his voice soft and raspy. Silas nodded, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "It is," he said. "I never thought I'd find a place like this a home." "Doctor," Thomas reached out and placed his hand on Silas's shoulder, his touch gentle but firm. "You helped build this place, Silas," he said. "You helped make it what it is today. Your kindness, your generosity, your unwavering spirit, that's what Meadow Creek is all about." Silas looked out over the town, at the thriving businesses, the blooming gardens, and the happy faces of the people. He saw children playing in the square, their laughter echoing through the valley. He saw families gathered together, sharing meals and stories. He saw a community united, strong, and resilient. He smiled, his heart overflowing with contentment. He had given his coat, his only possession, to a stranger in need, and in doing so, he had changed the course of his life and the fate of an entire town. He had found a home, a purpose, and a family. And it all started with a simple act of kindness. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Meadow Creek. The lights flickered on in the town square, illuminating the faces of the people as they prepared for the evening's celebration. Silas and Dr. Thomas sat together in silence, watching the town come to life. They were old men now, but their hearts were young, filled with the warmth of friendship, the joy of community, and the enduring power of kindness. Their story, the story of the coat, the doctor, and the town, would continue to be told for generations to come. A reminder that even the smallest act of generosity can have the greatest impact on the world.